Good morning, everyone. We have a major recall to tell you about this morning. The government is telling parents to immediately stop using a popular baby lounger after it was linked to several infants dying. Dina Demetrius reports.
Introduce you to the newborn lounger.
The Boppy company sold more than 3 million of these lounger pillows.
Having this propped up support allows for us to have really fun awake time together.
But now the products are under a recall after being linked to at least 8 infant deaths starting in 2015. A separate incident reported on saferproducts.gov this year claims a 2-month-old infant placed in a Boppy lounger was found after a couple of hours to have rolled over and was face down in the pillow and had suffocated. In a statement, Boppy says, "We are devastated to hear of these tragedies and that the lounger was not marketed as an infant sleep product and includes warnings against unsupervised use."
The problem is that it is a very tempting item for babies to sleep on and for parents to let their babies sleep on.
Rachel Rabkin-Peachman with Consumer Reports says it's not just Boppy. Last year, the Consumer Product Safety Commission warned parents infants should not sleep on any pillow-type products.
The best and safest way for babies to sleep, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, is alone on their back in a firm, flat surface that's free of any soft petting or restraints.
Parents who bought one of the loungers can go to Boppy's website to process a refund. Dina Demetrius, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Now, this recall involves the Boppy Original Newborn Lounger, the Boppy Preferred Newborn Lounger, and the Pottery Barn Kids Newborn Boppy Lounger. The product has been sold since January of 2004. All right, it is the CDC's turn now to weigh in on COVID booster shots. The FDA granted emergency use authorization for booster shots of Pfizer's vaccine for certain groups. This happened earlier this week. Natalie Brand has the latest from the White House on the advisory panel meeting.
A CDC advisory panel is debating the Pfizer booster shot with a vote scheduled this afternoon following the FDA's authorization of a third shot for certain Americans, those 65 and older, as well as people 18 to 64 who are at high risk for severe COVID-19. It's also authorized for people whose work puts them at higher risk, such as nursing home employees. The CDC committee's recommendations are not binding, but will help shape the federal government's guidelines.
You're tasked with difficult decisions, weighing the risks and benefits, extrapolating from sometimes the wealth and sometimes the paucity of data available.
For now, health officials have not authorized the use of booster shots for all adults and teens, saying they need more data.
The benefits obtained by those aged 65 and older are an order of magnitude larger than benefits obtained by those aged 18 to 29 years.
The Biden administration says it's ready to put its booster plan in action following full approval, while also working to encourage unvaccinated Americans to get their initial shots.
We remain committed to continuing our robust efforts to vaccinate as many people as possible.
In Iowa City, a surge of COVID cases and staffing shortages have led to problems.
The overwhelming majority of these patients are not vaccinated, and it's just really heartbreaking to know that a majority of this was preventable.
The FDA's booster shot authorization only applies to people who received both doses of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine at least 6 months ago. The agency has not yet authorized booster shots for Moderna or Johnson & Johnson. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
About 26 million Americans have received 2 Pfizer shots at least 6 months ago. Well, as the Delta variant surges nationwide, there is increased demand for a treatment that can keep high-risk COVID patients from getting very ill. Naomi Ruckham has more on monoclonal antibody treatment.
Curtis Urban got COVID-19 despite being vaccinated.
I started having what I would consider to be kind of a normal head cold.
He called his doctor right away because he heard monoclonal antibody treatment could be beneficial.
I am a little overweight and I do have high blood pressure, so I'm in that, I guess, enough of that high risk category.
Monoclonal antibodies are lab-made proteins that mimic the immune system and work to prevent the coronavirus from attaching to cells. High-risk patients with mild to moderate COVID, ages 12 and older, are candidates for the IV treatment.
Monoclonal antibodies should be given to individuals within the 7 to 10 day period. When it progresses to severe illness, it's too late.
The FDA has granted emergency use authorization for 3 monoclonal antibody treatments. Dr. Raymond Razanable with the Mayo Clinic authored a recent study looking at nearly 1,400 high-risk patients with mild to moderate COVID.
Patients who receive the monoclonal antibody therapy have a 70% risk reduction in getting hospitalized within the first 28 days after the diagnosis. Very rarely do patients report side effects, and the more common ones are nausea, chills, fever.
And if it's going to help me, then I'm all for it.
Curtis says his COVID symptoms were mostly mild, and he was back to work 12 days after treatment. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
All right, you're going to like this next one. A medical worker in New Jersey calls himself the singing phlebotomist. His job is to draw blood, but his calling is to sing and rather to bring joy through song. Jerika Duncan reports for the CBS News series A More Perfect Union with a story on how what unites us as Americans can be far greater than what divides us. Take a listen.
28-year-old medical assistant Enrique Rodriguez spends his breaks healing patients with song.
That's my outlet for communication. I don't care what background you come from. I don't care what your story is. There is a song that can touch every heart.
Enrique brings his guitar to work every day, performing for critically ill patients for the past 5 years. And the musical medicine has gained a following online. Last month, this video received more than 1 million views on TikTok, posted to honor a friend and longtime patient. The path to finding his voice was not easy.
My older brother, me and him were close to the hip, and he had to go away for some time. He had to go to jail for 5 years, and I just felt lonely and depressed, and I was seeking a family. I became a gang member. I lived to see the end of a bottle and for violence, and I just felt so angry all the time.
Feeling isolated after his family moved to Puerto Rico, Enrique turned to music as an outlet, teaching himself to play by ear.
I would come home to an empty apartment and just feel hollow and sad and just cry. So I started going to AA meetings downtown New Brunswick.
Why?
Because I knew that I needed help from people who were going through what I was going through. I knew that I couldn't save myself. And that's where I found the church. The church was on top of where the AA was. And then I heard them singing gospel songs, and I'm like, wait, that sounds beautiful. Let me walk up there.
That chance moment would bring music and faith into Enrique's life.
Oh, wake my soul and sing.
He mentioned to me that he was filled with pain, hurt, loneliness, depression, and I feel like, my life was like that too. Total opposites, but we were in the same pit. And God literally plucked us out.
For Pastor Scott Walsh, Enrique's joy is contagious.
If you saw his worship on Sunday morning, it's infectious.
And it's a message of hope to patients like Michelle Losi.
When I was in the hospital for my 6-month stretch, it really, I went from a deep sadness to happy as anything, singing along.
Even if it's only for 2 minutes for that song, in that 2 minutes, they're at peace. They feel loved, they feel joy. That's the goal.
I'm Jerika Duncan, Dayton, New Jersey.
Coming up, flight attendants want travelers to behave or stay home. That story is next when Mid-Morning returns. All right, we're back. Aviation industry leaders testified before Congress last week about the record surge of violent passenger incidents on flights and at airports. Most of the incidents involve passengers refusing to wear a mask. Errol Barnett has the latest from Washington.
Airline and flight attendant representatives are pleading with Congress to do more to keep air travel safe for everyone.
My colleagues are anxious and fearful. What is going to happen on the next flight? How will this passenger react if I remind them to wear their mask?
The number of unruly passenger incidents on flights surged during the pandemic, most over passengers refusing to wear a mask. A recent survey found 85% of flight attendants have dealt with unruly passengers this year, and 1 in 5 reported a physical incident.
In not every instance was law enforcement actually able to meet the flight in time before the passenger left the scene. We have had a lot of incidents out of Charlotte. We have had a lot of incidents out of the Florida airports and out of Texas.
The Federal Aviation Administration implemented a zero-tolerance policy and fines earlier this year when it became clear air travel in an ongoing pandemic was becoming unpredictable. As a result, the number of unruly incidents per flight decreased, but has recently plateaued. There have been more than 4,300 incidents so far this year and counting.
The fines that we have published, over $1 million in fines so far, and the communication that we've done with the public have driven those rates down, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
The suspension of alcohol service by Southwest and American Airlines is also credited for helping to decrease the number of air rage incidents. And now the FAA is asking airports to limit to-go orders for all alcoholic drinks. Errol Barnett, CBS News, Washington.
Flight attendant groups are also asking for greater law enforcement presence at the airport. Some members of Congress want airlines to share and consolidate their individual no-fly lists. One man is building a dream, one scoop at a time. His story is next. All right, we're back, everyone. Mikey Cole is the owner and founder of Mikey Likes It Ice Cream. His story goes from humble beginnings to ice cream entrepreneur. Here is his story.
Stroll through New York City's East Village with Mikey Cole.
You know that. How's everything with yourself today?
And you'll soon realize he's so much more than just your typical ice cream man.
He's an all-American success. He's an entrepreneur. That's the backbone of America.
Just watching people walk by you, hey Mikey, what's up? And you know everybody by name, people that live in the building above you, people walking down the street.
I'm a product of my environment, but in order to make a change for the better, you gotta become the environment. I've had people come in here, they're upset, they have a scoop of ice cream, they leave happy. That lets us know we're doing our job.
The job for Mikey began nearly a decade ago after spending 5 months in Rikers Island for possession of marijuana with intent to distribute.
Before you were selling ice cream, you were selling drugs. How did that fork in the road present itself to you?
My aunt leaving gave me the road to say, this is your calling. I found my purpose in life. And when you surround yourself with others that keep that in you, I'm not going down another path.
His late aunt and the discovery of her ice cream recipe while cleaning out her closet served as his inspiration.
I'm on my tippy toes, like trying to grab stuff, and this cookbook fell, like hit me in the head, fell on the floor, and I opened it. It was ratatouille and vanilla ice cream. When I saw like eggplant, zucchini, peppers, I was like, oh no, you know?
Mikey found meaning in replicating her recipe.
Every time I make ice cream, I sort of hear her a little bit talking to me on messages that she was trying to instill in me. My aunt taught me, if you make something with love and the person receives it with love, they're gonna keep going on the day with that love and energy.
The business, born in the kitchen of his Manhattan apartment, became a local hit.
You did have people turning up at your door once word got around in the neighborhood.
Oh man, Bertley lived on the 7th floor in my building. Every day, Bertley would spend $20 on ice cream.
You got yourself a beer cart?
The cops pulled up on me and they were like, buddy, you out here selling beer? And I'm like, officer, no. They look at the cart and they're like, no beer here, but we want to scoop of this ice cream though.
Today, with pop culture inspired flavors like Foxy Brown, Ice Ice Mikey, and Truffle Shuffle, Mikey Likes It appeals to neighborhood veterans and newcomers.
So like when you look at the neighborhood, like things have changed. Other business open, other business closed, but there's certain things that just stay the same.
You're on this corner where you grew up basically, but you go into the world.
To the world. It looks like I eat all the ice cream, but I'm not eating all the ice cream. We're here because the community wants us here. When it comes to Thanksgiving, we're out here with tables and we're feeding people. On Thursdays, we're giving out plates, all from a business that's 200 square feet in here, and you never know where that message goes.
Mikey's mission now transcends ice cream.
There's many Mikeys in every neighborhood. We gotta find them and grab them when they're young. It's ice cream, it's life, but it's bigger than all of that. So here is a coffee bacon and syrup waffle.
And the inspiration for this is CBS Mornings.
Yes, sir. Ice cream as breakfast is a great pick-me-up.
All right. I know you said it's CBS Mornings, but this just says to me, Vlad.
I second the ice cream for breakfast vote, okay? In California, there's a program that's giving emerging artists and at-risk teenagers a stage where they can find their voice and empowerment. Carter Evans brings us that story.
Welcome to Amazing Grace Conservatory.
Walking through the front door of this former speakeasy, the voices are clear. 13-year-old Nija says singing makes her feel bold.
It gives me a chance to express my emotions in like a different way than talking, because for me sometimes talking about what I really feel can be hard.
I think the greatest thing you can give to a child is a platform for them to have their voice.
Actress Wendy Raquel Robinson grew up in South LA and says discovering the arts at a young age changed her life.
Did you have friends that were in gangs?
Yeah, there were gangs. In my high school yearbook, there were 10 pages that were dedicated to lives that had been gone by drive-by shootings.
She co-founded Amazing Grace Conservatory to give other at-risk youth a stage.
It's not about just acting, singing, and dancing. You know, it's about those life skills.
More than 7,000 students have performed here, including 12-year-old Braylon, who says improv classes help him face uncertainties.
So in life, you don't really have a script to live based off of.
Think on your feet.
Yes.
Big steps toward a bright future. Carter Evans, CBS News, Los Angeles.
All right, coming up, things are still idling in Motor City. We'll tell you why coming up next on Mid Morning. All right, welcome back, everyone. The lack of chips for the auto industry has slowed down manufacturing. It's also put the brakes on a business. Here's Lee Cowan with more on that.
There's not a window in the place. And yet, Miller's Bar in Dearborn, Michigan has always had a pretty good view of history.
How long has this place been here?
It's been to be 81 years in November.
81 years.
Probably one of the longest running restaurants here in Dearborn.
It's kept grilling its signature burgers through wars, inflation, deflation, stock and housing market crashes, even COVID. But when the global shortage of semiconductors, a tiny piece of technology that Henry Ford could never have imagined, forced the nearby Ford plant to trim production of its F-150 trucks, Dennis Miller knew his business would have to tap the brakes too.
How much of your business is tied to the auto industry, you think?
Oh, I would guess probably 60%. You know, it's pretty big. I don't think anybody around here is running 3 shifts anymore.
Like clockwork, his bar stools would prop up the tired and the hungry, line workers just getting off their shift. Some of them still come, but most of his regulars are back home pinching pennies.
I don't know what's going to happen. You know, just time will tell, and I don't think this thing's going to get over for a while.
You don't think?
I would think this chip thing is going to be another year before they get things straightened around and start getting cars out again.
Wow.
All around Detroit, brand new vehicles sit sequestered, waiting for some faraway chip to make them whole. Sitting there means they're not sitting here at car dealerships, which means
we used to have 25 salesmen. Now you're half of that.
Robert Giuliano is a salesman for Chrysler in nearby Southfield.
If you learn to adapt, and recognize the trends, you can survive still.
Time was, say, 25 years ago, when semiconductors were homegrown, made right here in the U.S. Now 75% of that manufacturing is done in Asia. As you might expect, that's been a pretty big topic of conversation at union halls, like this one, for years.
If we don't start paying attention to the supply chain, the global supply chain, and start bringing some of that work back to this country, we're all going to be in the same boat soon.
Mike Huerta is president of UAW Local 602 in Lansing, Michigan. Most of his members work up the road at this General Motors plant, which had been churning out Chevy Traverses and Buick Enclaves. But it's eerily quiet these days. The chip shortage has kept employees Brian Stead and Daniel Hinton out of work since the summer.
How much longer do you think you guys can hold on?
Honestly, I don't know.
as long as I have to. It's definitely scary, but what can you really do, besides just wait?
And it involves decisions that people are making on the other side of the globe that are going to affect whether or not, or if, when we go back to work. So
That you have no input on.
Yeah, absolutely none.
GM says workers will be back the first week of October. But for how long? No one really knows.
We don't know what amount of parts are going to come to us. We don't know how long they're going to sustain being able to supply us.
So you could be right back here in 6 months again.
We could be right back here in 2 weeks.
Company towns like Lansing have always been linked to the economic tides. When one boat rocks, everyone else's does too. Stephen Farrell's restaurant, Tony M's,
All right, who had their baked spaghetti?
is doing its best to keep its moorings.
I used to have 39 employees. I'm down to 19.
And is that directly related to the chip shortage?
Absolutely.
He says the bar is almost always filled with someone who either works at the GM plant, supplies the GM plant, or supplies the suppliers. Workers like Vinny Polito know someone in every link of that chain.
I have no family that I have concerns about, but a lot of my friends that I work with, they got family, kids, they got bills, they got doctor appointments, dentist appointment.
Bread and butter worries that have echoed through the bars of Michigan for generations.
With the medium well.
Back at Miller's bar, the lunch rush is over. Things are winding down. Dennis Miller surveys the landscape, wondering just what dinner will bring.
It's like everything else, you'll get through it. It's just, you gotta grin and bear it.
In the auto industry, if the optimism goes, so does everything behind it.
Take care now. Have a good day, guys.
Miller's is a survivor, not because it's been lucky, but like Detroit itself, it works at surviving every day. For CBS Mornings, I'm Lee Count in Detroit.
And we'll be right back to wrap things up. Stay with us. All right, be sure you stay connected with us. You can get us on social media. We love to hear from you. We'll see you next time.